everybody. I apologize for the delays in getting these videos up. I was out of town last week, and due to some internet connectivity issues, it wasn't going to work out for me to be able to do them while I was away like I was hoping to. But that being said, we are back this morning, and we are continuing our study in Jeremiah chapter 26. Now, in chapter 26, as we talked about the other day when we were looking at this chapter the first time, and this is one of those areas where we know that things aren't always written in chronological order in the book of Jeremiah. It says here that it is at the beginning of the reign of Jehoiakim, the son of Josiah. And yet in chapter 25, it will say that it's the fourth year of Jehoiakim when that message is going to be delivered. And so you're going to have some time differences that are going to take place in the relating of all of these things, and those could be for any number of reasons as far as that goes. But here in chapter 26, Jeremiah is going to be dealing with a threat to his life. And it's going to come from the princes and the priests in many different ways, as far as the cry for him to be executed because, or rather the priests and the prophets, the call for him to be executed because of his proclamations. And they are actually going to execute others at this particular time. But Jeremiah is going to be spared. That being said, let's look at a couple of different things that really stuck out to me in Jeremiah chapter 26. The first one is found in verse number 3, as God is talking to Jeremiah, and he begins to give him the words that he is going to command him to say. I want you to notice verse 3, where there he says, "Perhaps everyone will listen and turn from his evil way, that I may relent concerning the calamity which I purpose to bring on them because of the evil of their doings." Perhaps. Here you have God using the circumstantial statement that it is a possibility, that he hopes that this is going to work, or he hopes that they will listen and they will respond. You know, so many times we hear people talk about the fact that since God already knows what it is that we're going to do and what it is that the choices that we're going to make, do we really have any kind of free will? And this is one of those passages that helps to illustrate that, yes, we do. We have a choice as to what we're going to do. And that while God may know all of the possibilities of all of the things that we could choose and what all of the outcomes are going to be, it is still up to us to make that choice. We still are the determiners of our fate. God is not pulling our strings. God is not forcing us to do things. It is of such a nature that while, yes, God knows all of the possibilities and all of the outcomes that are available, we still have to make the choice. And so as God gives Jeremiah these messages, he says, perhaps everyone will listen. Maybe they'll listen. Maybe they'll actually do what they're supposed to do. Does God think it likely? No, but it's possible, because men are still the ones in charge of their own actions. It's possible. And so we notice with God the recognition of the possibilities that are before us. When you come down to verse number 14 in the second place, as Jeremiah is facing the princes and all the people in his defense of himself, he makes the statement in verse 14. He says, "As for me, here I am, in your hand. Do with me as seems good and proper to you." That's a very courageous statement to be made by Jeremiah. He says, listen, I'm right here. I am in your hand. You do whatever it is that you think is good and proper. He says, all that I have done is what the Lord has told me to do. All that I have said is what the Lord has told me to say. He says, now, if you put me to death, verse number 15, then you will surely bring innocent blood on yourselves, for truly the Lord has sent me to speak. So it's not going to help your situation any if you kill me, but here I am. do with me whatever you want. And they're going to relent, and they are not going to put him to death. As a matter of fact, verse 16 says, the princes and all the people say to the priests and the prophets that he does not deserve to die, for he has spoken in the name of the Lord. I do find it interesting in the third place, in verse 17 and 18, that the elders of the land rose up and spoke to the people after this, and they remind them of something that Micah of Moresheth prophesied in the days of Hezekiah. Whether you realize it or not, you actually have the sayings of Micah of Moresheth, because that is the prophet Micah that we have as one of the books of the Old Testament. As a matter of fact, the quotation that they make is from Micah chapter 3 and verse number 12. And so here's yet another example of the fact that not everything was in the scriptures was written at the same time, because Micah is going to write 100 years before the time of Jeremiah, and they have his writing, they have his messages in the days of Jeremiah. They know what it is that he wrote, and they quote from it in Jeremiah chapter 26. And so here you have another example of the people quoting from one passage of Scripture that we oftentimes look at as being all the same age or equally archaic. And we see people quoting from one passage of Scripture in another passage of Scripture because it has already been historically written and verified. So these are some of the things that I pulled out of chapter 26. Obviously, we could delve a lot more into the deeper story or the greater extent of the things that are found here. But I wanted to pull out some of these nuggets to help us see some very important tidbits in how we relate chapter 26 to other things in the scriptures. And so I hope that these are beneficial to you. Tomorrow we will come back and we will begin examining Jeremiah chapter 27. But until then, I hope you have a great day.